So, here we go. Time for the weekly podcast. And we're coming into the stop sign. And it's a pretty big group today. Some of the guys up front, they're not stopping completely. But I want to make certain that I make a complete stop due to the truck that was on the left there. And off we go. I'm hoping that some of this TTH type behavior, or I guess it's just common, right? People are just so used to coming into stop signs and as a group behaving well as everybody else does. So there's a call to make certain that the rules of engagement, everyone's around the corner before we begin the games. So I come up and looks like that's Greg sitting back, kind of waiting for the rest of the group to come up, if for no other reason to wait for his better half. So I'm on my cross bike today, and it's rolling okay. I replaced the rear tire. It had a little hop in it. Got a flat last week, so it should be a little smoother. So today we've got Brent's power, and Brent is also on a cross bike. So it'll be interesting to see what we're throwing out compared to, well, each other. So the group's starting to coalesce. There's Rick there in the red. Not certain who the guy in the orange is. Is that Steve? Anyway, we're got a lot of people today, maybe like 18 or so, which is kind of surprising because this is January and it wasn't super warm, but normally in January we're lucky to get like 7 people. But perhaps it's the popularity of the ride or the words getting out, because this is one of the rides that it's been going on for like 8-10 years or so, but it's not listed in the Your Group Ride guide. So I'm kind of surprised people are finding it, but it's like word of mouth. So the sprint is afoot, and there's a lot of lethargy here. I don't know why. I know that Chris and Dean pulled all the way up County Road 5, which is kind of crazy. I'm surprised nobody else like went to the front or whatever. But I was on my cross bike, so I didn't want to do a lot of work. But we see Ian and Dean working pretty hard up there. Looks like my power isn't crazy, in the 100s or 200s. Hopefully something's going to happen, but it seems to be pretty leisurely. Kind of surprised that Ian's up front already because there's a lot of big engines in there, and they're kind of just sitting back. And really, I shouldn't even be in the second slot because there's not that much draft there. But like I said, there's a lot of people, and I didn't want to get caught out. So we're pedaling. Looks like, what do I got here in the 200s as far as wattage? Looks like Brent might be pushing a little bit more, but it looks like our wattage numbers are pretty much tracking each other. And we come into this corner, and this is one of the ones where I do like to be up front or closer to the front because you never know who you're cornering behind, and some people just don't brake all that well, or they brake, like they shouldn't. So Dean just pushing the edge on the rules of engagement on the yellow line, still up front, a little soft pedaling. This is one of the spots where if you wanted to really make a separation in the group, you could have hit it hard around here and made some of the big men in the back work a little bit, but that doesn't seem to be the motive today. Everyone just seems like, oh, la-di-da. Perhaps it's a cold day and they just don't want to go hard. So it looks like Ian is beckoning people to come up with his hands or whatever. It's a well understood signal. I particularly don't really like it. I prefer the elbow. And the reason I do prefer the elbow is I don't really think you should be taking your hands off the bars unless you really need to point out a flat or something. Yeah, I know it's probably a nuance, but I've seen people go down because they've taken their hands off the bars when a simple flick of the elbow, which is more efficient. When you look at the pro riders, no one takes their hands off the bar to wave people through. It's always a flick of the elbow, and they change their line just slightly, and it's enough to indicate that, hey, I'm pulling off. So if you've got to do anything more than that, I think that's unnecessary. So it looks like now I'm at the front. And look at my wattage. We're 200, 250, and my FTP is probably only around 200. So I'm definitely like working pretty hard here, at least compared to Dean, who's on that super aero bike, who's got an FTP probably 100 points or watts more than mine. So at some point he was like, "Hey Steve, what's going on?" And he's kind of like like slowing down to stay with me. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to pull these people like all the way up Prospect. This is like ridiculous. There's the big engines back there, Brent, Steve Highland, etc., etc. So there's really no reason for me to be up here way too long. So at some point here, I'm gonna just peel off, give the old elbow, and we're done here. Yeah, maybe I was up here longer than I recalled that I was up here. But yeah, there's too many of the big engines just sitting back. Now, Dean had the ability to like do something here, and he kind of just sits up, and I'm like, this is like the sprint zone, and I don't know what you're doing actually. Yeah, I don't know what you're doing. So if I was racing, I'd be like, what? Um, but it's a group ride, so you just need to learn different personalities and who's going to do what. So I'm pretty happy slotting back here. Still need to push a fair amount of watts just to stay back in here. And as you can see, there's a little bit of an echelon, so like a little bit of a wind out of the south component of the ride. So we're heading east. So I'm still like in the wind here, and I don't want to be too far back, and I don't really want to be in the wind. But with the cross bike, I'm not going to really do anything anyhow. So it's definitely just going to be a good workout for me. So the speeds are reasonable, but no one's doing anything. I mean, you can see the relaxation in some of the people's legs. There's Kevin in the blue there, kind of coasting in there. There looks like Greg, just kind of just sitting there. Oh no, that's Brandon. Wearing the old Peloton kit. Probably got it from Greg. Excuse me there. So, but we're all nice and tight in here. So now I'm sucked up behind Rick, who's like a really good draft. Happy to be here. And he's definitely the big engine. So here's one of these little rises. People are going to punch it. So Brent's up front. So take a look at his power. Like, there we go. He's throwing it down with some pretty decent wattage there. Comes up over the top. Dean's just kind of up in the mix. Steve Highland. And people aren't working hard yet. It's like either they don't want to try to create a selection, or part of their training plan is not to go hard. There comes Joel. Check out the new bike he's got. Cervelo carbon, nice 50 or 60 mil carbon wheels. So that should make a pretty good difference, like especially in the summer. So he's definitely somebody to watch for. And Brandon's there. In the old days, I'd be like, I got to get around Brandon, but he's gotten really strong in the last 3/4 of a year or so. So I'm pretty happy to sit on his wheel for a while, especially with the way the wind is here. He's the big guy and like a perfect draft for me. So you can see my power numbers, 150, 100, maybe 200 thrown in there. So things aren't too bad. And so Steve Highland and Dean happy to be at the front. I would have liked to have seen like Steve and Dean just like rip the field apart to create some kind of a selection. But I'm on the cross bike, so I'm kind of happy to be here. But it is kind of the sprint zone, so I just think maybe people could have went harder if they could have. Force some of the bigger men to actually do some work instead of just being wheel suckers. Make them work if they're going to suck some wheel. So it looks like I'm sitting at a pretty good position. Even with the cross bike, I'm kind of still surprised to be here. And it looks like maybe Rick has put on a little bit of a surge here. Still doing what, 23, 24 miles an hour. Still some coasting up in here, so it's not horrible, but we are putting in some wattage. So, and Dean has spent a lot of time up or near the front, which is like perfect. And I don't know if he's going to be too tired to shut this down, but it looks like there's enough there. Oh, 600 watts. Ooh, I had to reach down deep for that one to try to pull that one in. So it looks like, yeah, people are getting a little bit tired. I don't know who the gentleman was there in the orange helmet, but it looks like he's fallen off. And I'm behind Dean. Looks good. It looks like, yep, we've caught Rick. And is he soft pedaling a little bit? Yeah, the water's a little bit down, but no one wants to take up the mantle. Like, this is when it's like, somebody throws it down and that the wheel sucker should have a little bit left to be able to do something. But you can see there's a little bit of a gap here. So I'm just drafting Dean, who's like very nice to still be over there, giving me some shelter and a little bit of an echelon. You see Kevin in the blue comes through. Looks like Justin. And yes, the big men are starting to come to the front. It's like, um, oh, and there goes Brent. He knows this is dangerous, and oh, I'm getting swarmed here. Yeah, it looks like that acceleration was good, but it wasn't enough to get rid of people. Ah, but it's still good. So it looks like, oh, we have the traffic cone up ahead. So someone called for some sort of slowing down because there's like traffic furniture or some road construction up here. So I think people are a little hesitant to like hit it in case they have to just stop up there. But as it turns out, the flagmen were going to be nice enough and turn the sign from stop to slow as we approached. But there were some people that were just not going to go hard up to that sign. Okay, so it looks like this is about where I get ejected here. People went pretty hard, and I think there's a stop sign up here, and they let us through, and I wasn't certain if they were going to, so I kind of sat back maybe longer than they should have. Or at least that's my excuse. I wasn't going to do much on this bike anyhow, but it looks like it's pretty much game over for me. And it looks like Brent's also back there. Up there goes Dean. He's going to go for it, try to make up some ground. Up there's Brent coming by me, pushing much bigger wattage. For me, I'm like, okay, we got a little more ride to go today, so I think I'm gonna just, call it a day and then just turn around. But it was a decent ride. I mean, the group stayed together. There were no like real good attacks, but maybe it is only January, and I would say it was still pretty fast for January. So maybe I don't want it to be any faster. But if it's um, an omen of things to come, then this could be like a really nice fast section. The good thing is that it was really safe. Nobody did anything sketchy. Uh, the one thing that I should have pointed out is the way the wind was. People should have been just dropping straight back because the echelon was, towards the center line, and they were pulling over, which not that big of a deal because people were safe here, but it would have been safer if they had just like dropped back, wiggled the elbow, and got a little echelon going. Yeah, no biggie. So, chilling into the ride, and we're gonna make it to the turnaround point. I think Brandon came by and he said something he's about making it to the end, which is a lot of the people's goal because you should turn around before the group does, because that way you're not chasing. I mean, if you want to chase, you can go ahead and chase, but the group is, well, sometimes a little rammy, and so even though you're back a little bit, it's a lot of work to chase. The end.